This is an Inkle Loom. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate an Inkle Loom, talk about how an Inkle Loom works, and also demonstrate an advanced technique for weaving called Doubleweave, which produces the same pattern except in opposite colors on the front and back of what you're weaving. So, let's explain how this thing works. The heart of the Inkle Loom is this bit right here. We have threads running over a series of pegs to create the warp of our loom. An Inkle Loom is made out of a bunch of pegs that are mounted all facing in the same direction into a board. In this case, I've just used a couple of 2x3s with holes drilled in them to hold sections of PVC. A warp is then wound around the pegs, and you can use different arrangements of pegs to make a longer or a shorter warp. In this case, I've got kind of a medium length warp. If you look at this particular bunch of threads right here, we'll pretend that this is one thread. I know it's two, but we're going to pretend it's one. This has a loop attached to it so that it will stay in this spot. And then this one does not have a loop. Every other has a loop, and then the alternate ones do not. And then, if I lift the threads up like this, I create a gap. This gap is called a shed. And if I press the threads down, I also create a gap called a shed. Now, weaving is all about going under and over and under and over, and this makes that process automatic. If I lift this up through, and then shove a thread through, you can see that it's now gone under, over, under, over. And if I shove this thread down now, it has trapped the thread that I pushed through, that's my weft, and created a new gap. And if I put the thread through there, I have now woven in the other direction. And this is how the weaving progresses. That's a really crude estimation, but that is exactly how this process works. I'm going to remove that and now demonstrate what I've been doing with the band back here, which is a little bit more complicated than that. For patterned weaving, it's a little bit more complicated. For every single one of these positions, I have a black thread and a white thread. And what that allows me to do is to treat every single one of these positions as kind of like a pixel on a screen. And I get to choose which color is going to be shown. So for this next layer, I'm going to pull out my pattern and figure out where I am. So the last cross mark I made was right there. So for this band, what I'm going to do is go one black, 3 white, and then almost all the rest black, 1 white, 1 black. What I'm going to do is pull out the black one, press down the white one. Pull out the white one, press down the black one. And then pull out this white one, press down the black one. I've got my 3 whites now across. And now I'm going to do black ones almost all the way across so that the black threads are what you will see. And this is the pattern that's going to be shown. And then the last one is a white one and a black one. So this is the pattern that's going to now be shown on this side of the weaving. I'm going to take my weft thread and pass it through. And now what I want to do is show these opposite threads on the opposite side of the fabric. So the trick for that is pretty simple. I'm going to take a little piece of wood and shove it in to the same place where I just passed my weft thread. And then I'm going to take the threads that are back here and move them to the opposite side to create the opposite shed. And then I'm going to turn this board, and it should pop out the threads I did not use on the opposite side. You can see some of them here. If I press a finger through, I can pull those threads loose here on the bottom. I now have the exact opposite of what I just chose here on the top represented here on bottom. And I'm going to pass the weft thread back through that new gap. And I have now proceeded one line further in my pattern on both the top and bottom, represented opposite colors on the bottom. And then I pack the threads in just by physically folding these two sides, the half of the warp threads here and half the warp threads here, and that pulls this tight. I'm going to adjust my weft a little bit, and I'm ready to do the next line in the pattern. To demonstrate that one more time, we're going to come up to the pattern. I just made a mark to represent where we were last. This next line is here. So this is the spot I haven't marked. I've been marking it as straight lines and then cross lines so I can use the same space multiple times to record my progress along the pattern. And then it repeats every time I do that sequence. So I've worked my way up through here. I'm now on this one. That's the unmarked one. So if I follow that across, it's going to be black, white, most of the rest black, 4 white, 1 black. So that's what I'm going to pull up now. I'm going to set that aside. I've got 1 black here, set the white one down. 1 white here, set the black one down. And then the rest is going to be black, except for the last few. And then the last 4 are going to be, these 4 are going to be white, and then 1 black. So right now, I've got 3 layers here. I've got this big bunch here, which I have now divided into 2. I've got the pattern I'm going to use right here, which is going to show up on the pattern. And I've got this side, which I need to shove on the other side of this one in just a moment. So first thing I'm going to do, stretch that out a little bit, and then pull my weft thread through. That's going to lock these in place. Next, what I need to do is put in a shuttle. And right now I don't have my shuttle, so I'm going to use this block of wood into this space to hold that pattern. And then I'm going to shove this whole section down. Okay, that's now shoved down. Now what I'm going to do is rotate this to create a big gap. And what you'll notice is that there's a tension shoving the threads I did not use when I was picking up and dropping one. These are the ones that I dropped, which are now showing on the very bottom. And if I just pull down there, I have my new pattern all ready to go. So I can take my block out, separate these threads down. Sometimes they kind of try to felt themselves to the threads next to them. So you have to pull them down 1 or 2 at a time. Okay, stretch that into place, tighten my weft thread a little bit, and I'm just going to pass that through. And that is the opposite side of the pattern locked in place. And we're ready for the next line. The way that these Heddle strings work is that it is a loop twice as large as what you see right now. That is actually going over the peg twice. So the way it works is like this, where you basically put one end of the loop on the peg, and then the other end goes up to the thread you want to capture and folds in half over it. And then you just take the other end of the loop and, following the same line as the first, you loop that one over the end of the peg. And you just do that for every other either thread if you're doing a simple pattern, or pair of threads if you're doing the double weave complicated thing. And then you just follow this pattern back. Every other thread, of course, has to go over this one. Half the threads don't. But then for the rest of it, they follow the same pattern all the way down and back to the same point where they started. And as the weaving progresses, you adjust it down just by physically grabbing it and kind of shoving it downward. You can get it to move back into place.